Hey guys, welcome to LALoveCreative, and today we're talking about the Sony 35mm 1.8, my first impressions of the lens. I've been gone, I've been in Taiwan and Bali, humble brag, and I know none of you cared about me coming back, but I'm back. Just cue the intro, cue it. So recently I took a trip to Taiwan and Bali, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna buy a 35mm lens. I'm gonna buy it, I'm going to take it on my trip, and I'm going to return it as soon as I come back. Never do that. Don't ever do that. Anytime you buy like lenses and you think you're gonna return them, know that those are now your lenses. Those are your babies now. They're yours now. So now you gotta take care of it and raise it. But I fell in love with the 35 1.8. It was not part of the plan, but this lens is a phenomenal lens, and I think it's a great addition to anybody's kit. And in this video, I'll break down some reasons why and show you some examples from a fashion shoot that I recently did with this lens, and to give you a better idea if this lens is right for you. Now, there's a lot of competition when it comes to 35mm. We have the Sony Distagon, which is like I call it the Dragon, Sony Dragon, which is a f1.4 for about $1,500. That lens is great. I think the image quality is awesome, but it's a bigger lens compared to the 1.8. Then there's the Rokinon 1.4, which is about $600, $700 depending on where you get it. I heard a lot of good things about that lens. I might actually do a comparison with that lens and the 35 1.8. And then there's the Sigma 1.2 art lens for Sony, which is about $1,500, which if you're starting to understand right now, all the competition is pretty expensive. There's even the Sony 2.8 35mm, which is like $700, which to me is so small and so tiny. I'm like, how did you charge $700 for this lens? Come on, Sony. Give us a break, please. Now, the 35mm, the image quality is awesome. I shot a model with it recently, and I really loved the contrast. I loved the overall color that was coming out of the lens. I felt like this lens was a great high-end, almost G-Master-like image for a smaller price tag. Now, as far as sharpness, this lens is very sharp. It has really good corner-to-corner sharpness at 1.8. I found myself shooting and always feeling like, wow, everything is just tack sharp, but not overly sharp, like in a good way. You know how I don't like super sharp lenses on this channel. I'm not a big fan of that. But I felt like the sharpness that came from the 35 was just the right amount. I never felt like it was out of focus when it shouldn't be. Now, my channel is primarily focused for hybrid shooters, people that shoot a lot of video and also a lot of photography. So with that in mind, there's always gonna be things that I'm looking at when it comes to lenses on how I can do my photography and my video work with the same kit. What I loved about the 35mm 1.8 is you can manually focus with it. It has a good manual focus ring, repeatable, like you can make the same repeatable focus moves on it, and a lot of Sony lenses are electronic when it comes to their manual focusing, so you can't really do that. So it's really cool to see Sony go in the direction of autofocus lenses, but also having good manual focus. As far as autofocusing on this lens, I have to say that this is one of the best directions for Sony right now. This autofocus system on this lens is one of the best. I felt like the tracking, like the little square, you see the little square, it was always on the person. It was just like, I was like, damn, you're just always on the person. It was mesmerizing. I was getting distracted because I have ADD, so every time I saw the little square, I was like, oh snap, I need to be shooting stuff. But yeah, when shooting photos or when shooting video, I found that the autofocus on this lens worked extremely well. One of the reasons why I think this lens is perfect, and the reason why I actually bought it, was I wanted a lens that had a 1.8 aperture so I could shoot in low light, but also a lens that wasn't too wide, because when you shoot 24, I've shot 25 with the bodice. When you shoot those, you know, those focal lens, shooting people can be rough, and you're kind of more restricted in the way you want to shoot people. It can distort the image, it can distort the features, and I feel like 35 is a street photography lens in general. Is 35mm a portrait lens? I personally wouldn't just pick a 35 to shoot all my portraits with, but if you're shooting something like street photography, or if you're doing something like traveling, I think a 35 is a great balance between wide angle and also portrait photography. I think this lens is great. The only thing I'd have to say I don't like about this lens is it's made out of like this metal, which is cool. You're like, metal, why would that be bad? It scratches so easily. I already scratched this lens and I've only had it for like a couple weeks. And I've been so delicate with it and it's still scratched up. And I'm like, it's just that type of metal where you're just like, as soon as I put this in my camera bag, it's just gonna be scratched. As soon as it rubs against like something else, scratched. And you're like, well, resale value already down, but it's a great lens. Gonna have to keep it forever now. Now that's all I have to say today about the Sony 35 1.8. Let me know if you have any questions about Sony cameras or photography or videography, and I will see you next time. See you later.